A near $50 billion extra budget bill passes through the National Assembly as lawmakers from rival parties agree to roll out additional financial measures for small business owners hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Two top awards at the Cannes Film Festival go to South Koreans, an unprecedented number in a single year. Song Kang-ho is named Best Actor for his role in the film Broker, and Park Chan-wook Best Director for his mystery movie Decision to Leave. South Korean Archbishop Lazzaro You Heung-sik receives the Cardinal Red Hat as one of the 21 Cardinal electors selected by Pope Francis. The 70-year-old will officially begin his post on August 27th.
Hello and welcome to New Day at Arirang. It's Monday, May 30th, 8 a.m. here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm Lee Sung-jae.
I'm Oh Seung. Thanks for tuning in this morning because over the next hour, we'll be giving you a look at some of the biggest headlines of the day and experts' insights on key issues facing Korea and the rest of the world. Last night, lawmakers passed the first extra budget under the Yoon Suk-yeol administration and the 8th during the pandemic.
That's right. And worth some $49 billion, the budget will provide up to $8,000 to small businesses, among others. Lee Kyung-eun with our top story.
Following 2 days of delay, the National Assembly on Sunday passed an extra budget to provide COVID-19 relief payments to small businesses.
I declare the Budget Committee's revised bill has been passed.
This comes as the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party reached a last-minute agreement over the budget scale. And under the agreement, more money goes to more people than initially planned. Businesses with revenues under $4 million will get up to 10 million won, roughly $8,000. The money could be rolled out as soon as Monday. And businesses with less than $2.4 million in revenue can apply to get compensation for the losses caused by the pandemic restrictions. Meanwhile, freelancers and artists will get 2 million won in assistance, taxi and bus drivers 3 million won. This means some $31 billion in central government spending and $18 billion in grants to regional governments. Together, it amounts to slightly higher than the government's initial proposal at a record $49 billion. But the budget does not cover the hotly debated retroactive compensation, something the DP had requested. The PPP declined the proposal, citing both the lack of legal backing and that the calculating process could delay payments. They agreed to continue discussions. Despite lingering tensions, the parties apparently wanted to push the bill through before local elections coming up on June 1st, where the votes of some 3.7 million small business owners are at stake. And it was important that it was done by Sunday before the outgoing National Assembly Speaker's term ends. Any bill submitted after that would have to wait indefinitely until the next speaker officially takes office. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
At the Cannes Film Festival this weekend, top honours went to two South Koreans. It's the first time Koreans have won two prizes at Cannes in the same year. Song Kang-ho was named the Best Actor and Park Chan-wook won Best Director. Lee with the details.
Saturday at the Cannes Film Festival was a historic day for South Korean film. Two of the top awards at Cannes this year went to Koreans, Song Kang-ho for Best Actor and Park Chan-wook for Best Director. It's the first time Koreans have won two awards at Cannes in the same year. Song Kang-ho, a familiar face to audiences around the world, won the prize for his role in the film Broker. In the movie, he plays a man who steals babies put up for adoption and sells them. Song has starred before in several Cannes-winning titles, including director Bong Joon-ho's Parasite and Park Chan-wook's Thirst. It's the first award at Cannes earned by Song in his own right, though, and makes him the first Korean male and only the third Asian male to win Best Actor there. Chun Do-yeon won Best Actress in 2007 for the film Secret Sunshine.
I was so happy when we won an Oscar for the movie Parasite. Needless to say, this is a day I will never forget.
Director Park Chan-wook is already one of the world's most iconic filmmakers. Winning Best Director this year for the mystery film Decision to Leave marks his third triumph at Cannes. He previously won the Grand Prix for the film Old Boy and the jury prize for Thirst. In a daily magazine published for the festival on Tuesday by the British film magazine Screen International, global critics gave his latest film Decision to Leave an average score of 3.2, the highest score at Cannes this year.
I always try to come up with the best possible style and form to fit a specific story, a specific film. So who knows, I might come back with a film with even more violence.
Meanwhile, this year's Palme d'Or went to the Swedish director Ruben Östlund for the social satire Triangle of Sadness. Tied for the Grand Prix, the second highest prize, were Close by Lucas Daunt and Stars at Noon by Claire Denis. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
There is more good news at Cannes for South Korea. By clinching Best Director and Best Actor at this year's film festival, Korea now has won all 7 major awards at the event. Min Soo-kyun takes us back to the very high points of the festival over the years.
South Korean movies have made another strong showing at the 75th Cannes Film Festival, with Park Chan-wook winning Best Director for his movie Decision to Leave, and Song Kang-ho becoming the first Korean in history to receive Best Actor for his role in Broker. The 2 wins this year have indeed opened a new chapter for the country's film industry, as South Korea has now won all 7 trophies at the French Film Festival. Traveling back in time, in 2002, renowned director Im Kwon-taek was named Best Director for his film Chrihaseon, bringing home the country's first award at the Cannes Film Festival. Just 2 years later, the Grand Prix, the second most prestigious prize at the festival, was handed to Park Chan-wook for his thriller Old Boy. Not to mention, Park also collected the jury prize, the third highest honor, for his horror movie Thirst in 2009, becoming one of the most beloved directors by the Cannes judges. Chun Do-yeon won Best Actress for her performance in Secret Sunshine, while director Lee Chang-dong clinched the Best Screenplay Award in 2010 for his film Poetry. And finally, director Bong Joon-ho's Parasite received the top prize Palme d'Or at Cannes in 2019, the movie which also made history at the Oscars when it became the first non-English language film to win Best Picture in the 92-year history of the Academy Awards. South Korean movies have also garnered international recognition at other prestigious film events as well, including the Venice and Berlin International Film Festivals. Min Soo-kyun, Arirang News.
South Korean Archbishop Lazzaro You Heung-sik was one of the 21 new cardinals appointed by Pope Francis. Now he'll be the 4th South Korean to receive the cardinal red hat and will be one of the new cardinals on the secret conclave tasked with choosing the next pope. Kim Yo-sun has more.
Pope Francis announced Sunday that he would appoint 21 new cardinals in August, including South Korean Archbishop Lazzaro You Heung-sik.
On Saturday, August 27th, I will hold a consistory for the creation of new cardinals. Here are the names of the new cardinals. Archbishop Lazzaro You Heung-sik, Prefect of the Congregation for the Clergy.
Yu, who is 70 years old, has been serving as the prefect of the Vatican's Congregation for the Clergy since 2021. He becomes the 4th South Korean to receive the cardinal red hat and is one of 16 new cardinals eligible to vote for the next pope. Speaking with Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency following the appointment, Yu stressed this was possible thanks to the Catholic Church's 240-year history in South Korea. He added that the appointment is God's calling for him to serve the church even more and vowed to continue living as a descendant of the martyrs. Yu served as the head of the Peace Committee for the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Korea and traveled to North Korea 4 times. His ardent prayer and hope has been lasting peace and reconciliation on the Korean peninsula. Other newly appointed cardinals come from the U.S., France, East Timor, and Singapore. Once again, Pope Francis has decided to appoint archbishops in countries where the church is small or growing. They will be officially installed at a ceremony to be held at the Vatican on August 27th. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy on Sunday visited troops in the Kharkiv region, located on the country's battered eastern front line. Now, this is the first trip to the war-torn east since Russia's invasion began in late February. President Zelenskyy's office posted a video on Telegram with a caption saying that over 2,200 buildings have been destroyed in the region. It further explained that the Ukrainian leader remains committed to restoring, rebuilding, and bringing back life to the region. Now it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into some of the key issues in the spotlight right now. South Koreans Park Chan-wook and Song Kang-ho were named Best Director and Best Actor, respectively, at this year's Cannes Film Festival on Saturday, marking the first time in the country's cinema history that Korean films have taken home two titles from the festival.
So what made those two stand out among other nominees this year? Now we're going to find out as we connect with Jason Bergevez, a Seoul-based film critic joining us this morning. Good morning. Now, firstly, what's your take on the two winning the top prizes for director and actor this year? I mean, does this come as a surprise to you, or was it sort of expected?
Yeah, good morning. Yes and no. I mean, Park Chan-wook winning Best Director, that's what I expected, because, I mean, the film's been very well received in Cannes. It led the Screen International's jury grid. And, you know, Parasite won the Palme d'Or in 2019, and so I think towards another South Korean the Palme d'Or so soon seemed unlikely to me. And he's won the Grand Prix, he's won the jury prize, and so what do you give him next? And Best Director seems the most likely. As for Song Kang-ho, I read or I heard that Broker had received a Cannes callback. Now, these are callbacks because a lot of people kind of leave Cannes and the award ceremony happens right at the end of the festival, so they're then called back. So Decision to Leave and Broker were called back. So I was expecting an award for Broker, but I thought perhaps IU actually might win Best Actress because she was, in terms of the reviews I read, I haven't seen the film yet, her performance was widely acclaimed. But yeah, it went to Song Kang-ho, which I'm equally happy about, clearly a giant in the world of Korean cinema. In many ways, the face of Korean cinema.
So again, director Park Chan-wook, no stranger to the Cannes Film Festival, but this time around, what made his film Decision to Leave really stand out all the more? And also, I didn't have a chance to watch this movie particularly, but does it have the usual dark element that we're used to seeing in his work?
I haven't seen the film myself, but I've heard it's not as violent as his other films. His films often receive, you know, an adult rating or an 18 rating. I don't think this film will. But I think with Park Chan-wook, and this is the case for many of Korea's kind of iconic filmmakers, it's true of Bong Joon-ho, Kim Ji-yoon, they're able to do something different with genre. They're incredibly innovative and experimental in terms of these genre tropes. Now, Decision to Leave, it's a murder mystery, it's a procedural thriller, and evidently he does something quite different with it. And I think that's what resonated with critics. I mean, the performances are fantastic. Park Chan-wook is incredibly well versed in cinema and literature, so he's able to throw a lot into his film and make his films incredibly dense and layered. And I think for critics and those who love cinema, there's a real appreciation for his work and his understanding of the medium.
And Song Kang-ho became the first male South Korean to win at Cannes. And, well, he's always been a great actor, of course, but why does it take so long for him to get recognised?
Well, I think for actors, sometimes it's harder to get recognised internationally. Often when Asian films or Korean films go to festivals and go to award or hit the award circuit, it's often that the craft categories, the directors in particular, that attract the most attention. I mean, Parasite's a good example of that. It won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, and it was nominated in the various categories, including production design and editing. So, but it wasn't nominated for any of the actors. Now, Song Kang-ho, I think, as a result of Parasite, now he's been, like I said earlier, the face of Korean cinema. He's been a leading man in many of these iconic Korean films, working with these seminal filmmakers, Park Chan-wook's JSA, Thirst, Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder, Parasite, Kim Ji-yoon's A Quiet Family, and various other films as well, including A Foul King. And so I think it was an acknowledgement. I'm sure he's brilliant. He's terrific in Broker as well. But to me, it almost feels like an acknowledgement of his contribution, his immense contribution to the world of Korean cinema. I mean, when Broker had its kind of standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival, there was this huge round of applause for Song Kang-ho, and he's just become this iconic figure now. And I think when the jury got together, I think perhaps that was a factor in their decision.
Jason, just a quick question again. Unfortunately, none of the South Korean films were able to win the Palme d'Or, but Triangle of Sadness, right, with Ruben Östlund was, I believe, the winner of the top award there. I mean, your thoughts on them, and was this a surprise win in your opinion there, or was this also widely expected?
Well, the Cannes jury is predicting the Palme d'Or is notoriously difficult because they're not critics, they're often actors, directors, and so yeah, it can be quite tricky to predict what film will win the Palme d'Or, and that was certainly the case this year. I didn't think it'd be a Korean film, but yeah, it was difficult to read the jury, and you know, there are a number of films that were quite well received, including Close is a Belgian film. And so, yeah, this is the new film by Swedish filmmaker Ruben Östlund, and he made The Square. This is an English language film, his new film, Triangle of Sadness. It takes place on a luxury yacht. And I gather there is this very long vomiting scene, which has attracted quite a bit of attention. Apparently, it took 6 months to edit. So it's one of these films that I think is going to attract attention once it's released as well, and generate quite a bit of conversation, not least because of this particular scene. But I think it's obviously an accomplished film as well. So I'm curious to see it when it finally gets released here in Korea.
Well, definitely some dedication indeed, editing vomiting scenes for 6 months. Well, thank you so much for your insights this morning. Looking forward to speaking with you again.
Okay, take care.
All right, with that wraps up the first half of New Day at Arirang.
But do stick around. We have more coming your way in the second half, so we'll be back in just a moment.
We will share South Korea's experience in tackling COVID-19 and introduce a Korean New Day. A Korean survivor of Japan's wartime sex slavery met with
extraordinary climate crisis and pledged to work with the EU to tackle the challenge.
The objective of its North Korea policy is
protesters gathering across the country to peacefully demand an end to hate and violence.
Arirang, what matters?
넌 볼 수 없고 가질 수 없어 뚝뚝 눈물 쏟아내도 뜨거운 자태 한번 비추지 않고 내게만 까칠한 그녀는 유명한 서대별야 어딨나 In your eye 걔와 함께면 넌 디스토피아 내 발걸음 따라오면 유토피아 나의
so good right now. Maybe I had a drink or two, but this somehow feels like it's forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Maybe this is forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Forever.
Welcome back to the second half of New Day at Arirang. South Korea, the United States and Japan are reportedly arranging three-way talks in Singapore next month on the sidelines of the Shangri-La Dialogue, an annual security forum.
That's right, and according to Japan's Kyoto News, the talks are between the defense ministers of the three countries, Lee Jong-sup of South Korea, Lloyd Austin of the U.S., and Nobuo Kishi of Japan. The report says they will be discussing ways to deepen their cooperation in dealing with North Korea's recent provocations, including its ballistic missile launches. The Shangri-La Dialogue is from June 10th through the 12th. South Korea, according to the report, will likely also hold bilateral talks with the U.S., but not with Japan. Now, the South Korean military has been testing a newly developed infantry fighting vehicle that could soon be exported for use by Australia. It can carry almost a dozen troops and can even defend against tanks. Pae-eun-ji with this report.
An armored vehicle drives through a military base. It even drives through mud easily without getting stuck. It can carry up to 11 people, including 8 soldiers and 3 crew members. Its name is Redback, an upgraded version of South Korea's K-21. For the past 6 weeks, the South Korean military has been testing it at this army base in Gangwon-do, located northeast of Seoul. This Redback 42-ton armored vehicle is equipped with anti-tank guided missiles, as you can see right here. It also has radar on all 4 sides to accurately detect and hit targets. It can also be equipped with a 30mm cannon and a 7.62mm machine gun. The Redback is an infantry field vehicle, or IFV, a type of armored fighting vehicle used to carry infantry into battle while providing direct fire support. As for its speed, it can move up to almost 70 km per hour on roads. Even on rough terrains, it can move at around 45 km per hour.
Right now in Ukraine, many Russian military vehicles are being destroyed and a lot of them got stuck in mud. So it's important to have the active protection system and a high level of mobility like our Redback.
The test run is expected to help the South Korean developer export the Redback to other countries, such as the US, Australia, and Europe.
By having our army test this vehicle, we will be able to provide more data based on our experience. So this is going to help our local firm gain the upper hand when competing with other countries in the global defense market.
The Redback was specially designed to meet the requirements of the Australian Army. It's currently under review after being shortlisted as one of the final 2 models for Australia's project to buy 450 new infantry fighting vehicles. Earlier this year, it went through trials to check its field performance in Australia. The successful bidder will be selected later this year. Pae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
It's time now for Global Insights, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. Washington gave its first public overview of President Joe Biden's approach to America's competition with China, a classified strategy that was apparently completed last fall. And after decades of trying and failing to change China to follow the international order, US officials are now pursuing a change of tactic to invest, align and compete with Beijing, and also shape the strategic international environment, saying that China poses the greatest threat not only to the US but the world. So what will all of this entail and mean for US allies like South Korea and Japan? We discussed this today with Patrick M. Cronin, Asia Pacific Security Chair at the Hudson Institute, and Woo Jung-yup, Research Fellow at the Sejong Institute. Very warm welcome to you both. And well, we have a lot of ground to cover today, so we'll be starting with you, Dr. Cronin. The US says that despite the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine, Washington is very much going to remain focused on what it sees as the most serious long-term challenge to the international order, which it thinks is posed by China. So how is it exactly planning to do so?
Well, we have to do so. We're in an interconnected world, and there's an interplay between what happens in Europe and what happens in Asia. The administration understands this, but we do need to do two things in particular, and I think this is what Secretary Blinken talked about, as well as other key officials. The first one is they're trying to leverage the linkages that exist across Asia and Europe. So think about AUKUS, the Australia, UK, US submarine and technology deal, which the United Kingdom which talks about its global role and global Asia role, playing with Australia and the United States on a very sophisticated piece of work with security implications. The same could be said about NATO. Next month, June, there will be a NATO Indo-Pacific discussion that will include Korea and Australia and Japan and some key members of the Indo-Pacific region. Of course, Korea has now joined the cyber security hub of excellence to try to bring their expertise to bear with NATO. That's just another example of how this is connected. The second thing that the administration needs to do, though, to make this feasible, that is, so that it doesn't get overcommitted in two theaters, is it has to mobilize like-minded allies and partners toward a common agenda. And it's trying to do that, whether it's trying to mobilize countries against aggression, because if aggression is allowed to stand in Ukraine, it could well be replicated and it could embolden others to pursue aggression in Asia. Secondly, it has to also try to control the rules of the road, or shape them at least, shape that environment on the rules of the road as we have a digital economy and we have more concerns about supply chain security and mineral access and so on. And that's why Korea has been one of the 13 countries joining in with the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework to try to shape those rules. And so I could go on about trying to mobilize like-minded actors across Asia and Europe, and also trying to make sure that we're leveraging the linkages of these like-minded countries. But those are the two things that are going to have to guide U.S. policy so that it can focus on its main challenge, China, while dealing adequately with the European security concerns.
And Dr. Cronin, well, we've heard the word decoupling more frequently than not over the past few years. And the administration says it's not seeking to decouple from China. So what's really made it change its policy of decoupling? And what do you think all of this is going to entail?
I don't see this as a sharp change. I see this as an evolution of trying to balance long-term security concerns and growing security concerns, especially in the technology-driven economy, which has dual uses for both the economy and for military use, and balancing that with free trade, with open commerce. And so the administration is trying to pursue a smart industrial policy, investments in key critical areas like semiconductors, working with South Korea very closely on that, the president's visit in Pyeongtaek, and also trying to make sure that the rules of the road, again, through the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, shape and guide the digital economy going forward. That's the kind of smart industrial policy that they're pursuing. They're also obviously trying to crack down on intellectual property theft, on industrial theft, which has been well noted and documented over the past decade in particular from China, but not just China. And I think together, this kind of selective decoupling and this kind of smart industrial policy can help us prevent from completely decoupling the world economy, because China is a global actor and part of the global economy with the United States, not just with South Korea and many others throughout the Indo-Pacific.
And now, Dr. Wu, the US says it's going to invest, align and compete to win against China. And at the same time, it says it's not going to decouple. So what does this mean for US allies like South Korea, who are also trading partners of China?
As Patrick just mentioned, that we are not seeking to decouple from China, because as Patrick mentioned, that China is a global actor and a global player, and South Korea has a huge economic relations with China. So we are not going to decouple from China, but we need to lower our dependency on China, because our dependency led to our vulnerability to certain policy action by China, as we observed in 2016 when there's a fair deployment issues between Korea and China. So I believe that the policies taken by both South Korea and the United States is not seeking exclusion or isolation or even decoupling from China, but we are trying to lower our dependency on China.
And another question for you, Dr. Wu. The emphasis seems to be very much on shifting the focus to not just competing with China, but actually winning that competition. And well, can the United States win economically when many countries in the Indo-Pacific, they seemed very unconvinced of the possible benefits that this economic framework might bring, particularly the level of access they would have to the US market. So what are your thoughts on this?
So as you just mentioned, that IPEF is not a trade agreement or a free trade deal between countries. So it doesn't include the elements of market opening, especially a US market opening for the countries in ASEAN region. So there's nothing tangible for right now for those countries to getting market access to the United States. But IPEF is about establishing norms and rules that are not possible to regulate unmarket-friendly behaviors in the region. So ultimately, joining IPEF will benefit those countries who are seeking the future growth in the digital trade and other areas of economy that are not regulated by the established norms and rules of trade. So I think ultimately the countries will acknowledge and find out that the joining IPEF will benefit for countries in setting up those rules for the new market and new industries.
And Dr. Cronin, with South Korea and other Indo-Pacific countries having joined IPEF as inaugural members, China is obviously seeing this as a threat to its economic presence here in the region. And well, it seems that China, Russia and Pyongyang, they may be moving closer as South Korea and Japan they respectively move closer to the United States. So in terms of dealing with North Korea issues, are you seeing a faction between Seoul, Washington and Tokyo, and on the other hand, Pyongyang, Moscow and Beijing?
No, I don't think it's that kind of sharp alignment. I think it's a softer bipolarity, if you will. North Korea has been a spoiler for all of its life, basically. Russia's been constantly a spoiler, but it really shattered the peace and isolated itself when it decided to invade Ukraine in February. And it's China, though, that is the disappointment here, because China sets itself up above everybody else. It thinks it has the best approach to COVID, to governance, the best global security initiative, you name it. It thinks it's the top. And yet here it is vetoing sanctions when clearly North Korea is in violation of the UN Security Council resolutions by resuming ICBM tests, and maybe we won't be able to count on China as well when they resume nuclear tests pretty soon. Similarly, the fact that China has let Russia sort of invade Ukraine and given them a lot of cover for that kind of aggression doesn't speak well of China's leadership in the world. And I think it's damaged China's reputation. You know, the United States administration, this is not well known, has reached out repeatedly to Beijing and said, let's work together to help with the COVID emergency in North Korea. And there's been complete silence and a rejection from China of that kind of cooperation. So I think there's a lot of disappointment in America's view of what China's doing internationally. That's not an alignment of the three countries, but it does mean that China is now joining in against the rules-based order on an increasing level, not just to deal with issues that it has long disagreed with us on, but even with issues like North Korea, where we have over the years expected help.
And it's becoming very concerning indeed, Dr. Ryu, because North Korea seems to be gearing up for its 7th nuclear test. And what would this indicate in terms of its nuclear weapons capability when this inevitably happens?
So January last year, Kim Jong-un announced that North Korea is in their way to development and deployment of tactical nuclear weapons. So to show to the global community that North Korea is ready to deploy tactical nuclear weapons, they not only need to show the delivery methods, but also need to show that they have reliable nuclear warhead that has low yield. So the observers have argued that there's a strong possibility that North Korea is going to test low-yield tactical nuclear warhead anytime soon. That is why we believe that North Korea is going to make 7th nuclear test in a not distant future. And as Patrick just mentioned, that last Thursday, that both China and Russia vetoed the U.S.-led sanction resolutions on North Korea for their ICBM test. So we don't know yet. China and Russia will do the same if North Korea makes another nuclear test. So we have to see whether North Korea is going to make another nuclear test and whether China and Russia is going to veto any sanction resolution led by international community.
And Dr. Cronin, well, since last year, President Biden's been talking about international threats, so with Russia and China, and he's kept emphasizing that he is going to focus on competing with China, but then there have been many stumbling blocks in his way, not just with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but also the Iran nuclear deal, and all these factors distracting him from focusing on Beijing. And with the US midterm election just a few months away, will President Biden be able to focus on or really prioritize his top foreign policy goals?
Well, I think he had a very successful trip to Korea and Japan. I think before that, he had a wonderful summit with the ASEAN leaders. And things are set up pretty well here for future high-level diplomacy, including Secretary Austin at the Shangri-La Dialogue, where there'll be the trilateral discussions with Korea, Japan, as well as bilateral meetings. So there are a lot of good things to report, that the United States is heavily engaged despite the fact that our domestic politics are so fractious. We don't have the imperial presidency that we had up until the Vietnam War. Once we withdrew from Vietnam, the kind of ignominy and the disgrace on the White House led to a lot more checks and balances. That ebbed and flowed since then in terms of power of the presidency. But when the domestic politics are bad, the chief executive, the president of the United States, often finds that there's much more room and opportunity in foreign policy. And I expect that President Biden will lean into foreign policy even, or maybe especially, if our domestic politics get worse.
And my last question to you, Dr. Ryu, now I want to ask about strategic assets in the region. And well, it seems that for now there is some concern that President Biden will have to maybe focus on domestic issues down the road. But during that time, he's really going to have to rely on the support of his staunchest allies, Seoul and Tokyo. And during that time, well, they promised to strengthen extended deterrence. But what kind of strategic assets do you think that they are considering deploying to the region?
So in the joint statement between President Yoon and President Biden, they don't specify what kind of U.S. strategic asset will be deployed onto South Korea, but they say it's going to be timely and a coordinated manner to show North Korea that the U.S. Provision of the extended deterrence to South Korea is rock solid. So we don't know yet what specific assets will be deployed, but discussion of extended deterrence between two presidents show that we are going to defend South Korea from North Korea's any provocations in the future.
I see. Well, I'm afraid this is where we're going to have to wrap up the interview today due to time. But that was Patrick M. Cronin, Asia Pacific Security Chair at the Hudson Institute and Woo Jong-yeop Research Fellow at the Sejong Institute. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, South Korea is one of the countries that produces the most plastic waste in the world. And while there's still a long way to go to secure a greener future, the country has been globally recognized as one of the planet's top recyclers. Choi Min-jung reports.
A pile of waste lined up on a conveyor belt, being sorted out before being sent on for another shot at life.
Much of the trash we throw away ends up in garbage treatment facilities like this one. Some materials are sorted out and transformed into a new product, but the majority are still not suitable for recycling.
South Korea is the world's third biggest producer of plastic waste. More than 80% of plastic bottles are thrown away for recycling, but only 20% of what's put in the trash is actually recycled.
There are many cases where recyclable garbage is not thrown away properly and is sometimes mixed with food waste, so there is the difficulty of having to reorganize the trash by material. This can't be done solely by using machines, so people working here have to hand-pick the trash as well.
To increase the number of items that go on to be recycled, Koreans are advised to follow 4 steps: empty, rinse, remove, and dispose. People should empty bottles or packaging and rinse away any foreign substances, remove any plastic labels or tape attached to the waste, and throw them away in appropriate garbage bags. People should also make sure to throw away transparent plastic bottles separately from colored ones, as transparent ones are considered better materials for recycling.
We hope people make sure that they throw away transparent plastic bottles properly by removing labels before disposal, because these bottles are recycled into thread used to make clothes.
Those that do not comply with disposal guidelines could face penalties of up to around $785. Although there's still much work to do, South Korea clinched the number 10 spot in the Green Future Index 2022, thanks to waste management systems such as these. A total of 76 countries were ranked by the MIT Technology Review based on their capacity for a sustainable future. And the World Economic Forum cited the ranking when they highlighted South Korea as one of 10 world leaders in building a greener future. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Now, Korea is a mecca for competitive gaming, or esports as it's widely known. Today, it's practically a national institution, and Korea contributed to the growth of esports all around the world. Our Shin Yeon takes a look at how this came to be and where esports stands today.
South Korea is one of the forerunners in esports. It was one of the first in the world to come up with concepts like game leagues and professional gamers. And it all started around the late 1990s at PC rooms, like the one where I'm at right now. People would gather with their friends to play online games and watch each other. PC room management noticed this trend and started holding tournaments against each other to choose the best gamer in each district. Back then, the most popular game was StarCraft. Decades later, esports has grown exponentially here in Korea. And let's find out how.
The history of esports can be traced back to StarCraft. Released in 1998, this online game instantly made it big. Because Korea had just the right infrastructure, PC rooms. Unlike computers at home, these internet cafes had high-speed internet and top-notch hardware.
StarCraft became a national game. Students would rush to PC rooms after school. Adults would come right after work. Everyone was playing it. Because StarCraft and online games became so popular, South Korean broadcasters decided to televise some offline matches. Nobody had thought about it before. The combination of gaming and broadcasting hit the jackpot. It turned out users enjoyed watching others play because they could relate to them and learn some hacks themselves.
Over the years, new games have been added. The biggest in Korea right now is League of Legends, which holds 2 major global esports tournaments, Mid-Season Invitational and the World Championship. This year's MSI was held in Busan, here in Korea.
I couldn't get tickets to all the matches, so I came to watch just one. But it was disappointing that I couldn't go to all of them. It would have been fun.
I actually went to MSI to see Team T1 play in person. But I also came here to take pictures as if I'm standing up close to my favorite pro gamers.
The domestic esports industry has seen double-digit growth almost every year. The average annual growth rate from 2015 to 2019 was 17.9%. Recognizing the growing fan base in Korea, Riot Games, the developers of League of Legends, held an orchestral performance with some of the country's most renowned musicians playing iconic music from the game.
It's no doubt that Korea is the mecca for esports. There's just so much demand for it. We've seen tickets for this orchestra performance sell like hotcakes since last year. You can sense the excitement as fans dress up as their favorite characters and run out during the intermission to buy merchandise.
Yes, sir. To even have more fun at this event, many fans have dressed up as their favorite game characters. 혹시 오늘 어떤 캐릭터로 오셨을까요?
정령용 애쉬 코스프레 했어요. 저는 모르가나 코스프레 했습니다. 리그 오브 레전드에 케이틀린이라는 캐릭터 있어요. 전 리그 오브 레전드의 전투토끼 미포를 할 것 같습니다.
With esports attracting more views than many conventional sports, it has been selected as an official medal sport at the 19th Asian Games for the first time ever. Team South Korea is trying its best to live up to the reputation of the country being the home of esports. 신예은, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. US President Joe Biden traveled to Texas on Sunday to comfort families in the town of Uvalde following the nation's deadliest school shooting in a decade, in which 19 students and 2 teachers were killed. Wiping away tears during their visit to makeshift shrines at Robb Elementary School, the president and the First Lady laid down white roses and paid their respects to the victims. The visit comes as federal officials announced they would review the slow response by law enforcement. There has also been anger over a decision made by authorities during the incident, where they allowed the shooter to remain in a classroom for nearly an hour. Heavy rains and landslides in northeastern Brazil over the weekend have killed at least 56 people and injured 25. Civil defense forces for the state of Pernambuco have said that 3,900 people have also lost their homes. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro announced on Sunday that the military would assist those impacted, adding that he will personally travel to the stricken area on Monday to assess the situation. Officials say Brazil's northeast has suffered from exceptionally high volumes of rain, with some areas recording more rain in 24 hours than the total expected for May. A plane carrying 22 people went missing in Nepal on Sunday, with officials saying that cloudy weather has prevented helicopters from searching the flight's last known location. Meanwhile, state-owned Nepal television reported that villagers had seen an aircraft on fire at the foot of a Himalayan mountain. According to officials, the 43-year-old Tara airplane took off from the tourist town of Pokhara and was headed toward Jomsom, some 80 kilometers away. Contact was lost just 5 minutes before landing. Nepal has a record of air accidents, as its weather can change suddenly and airstrips are typically built in mountainous areas. Thousands of motorcyclists rolled through the streets of Washington, D.C. on Sunday to raise awareness of issues facing veterans in the United States. The annual 87-kilometer Rolling to Remember event hopes to shine a light on veteran suicide prevention and increase efforts to locate prisoners of war and the more than 82,000 service members still missing in action. Spectators reflected on the importance of the day, the problems facing America, and the sacrifices of fallen soldiers. The bikers traditionally hold the event just before Memorial Day, a national holiday set aside to remember those who died in the line of duty. In the UK, ahead of Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee, fans of the Queen's favourite dog gathered at a London cafe on Sunday to celebrate the breed. Corgis attending the event were served dog biscuits and a canine-friendly cappuccino, also called a puppuccino. This comes just days ahead of the Platinum Jubilee, which takes place from June 2nd to June 5th to mark Queen Elizabeth's 70th year on the throne. During that time, she has owned more than 30 corgis, including 14 generations of the same dog family. Buckingham Palace has announced that the British monarch plans to attend a number of events during the 4-day celebration. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good morning. We have welcome rain in the forecast to ease the dryness in the air and to put the brakes on the early summer heat. Well, right now, southern provinces are seeing light rainfall, which will let up in the morning before another round of rain hits central parts of the country from late this afternoon. But overall, precipitation will be less than 5 millimeters. Temperatures hovered around 30 degrees Celsius over the weekend in the capital area. But today's rain and clouds will keep temperatures in the mid-20s. In fact, morning temperatures in Seoul are already about 20 degrees Celsius, and elsewhere, lows are about 4 to 5 degrees higher than Sunday. Afternoon temperatures will be 4 to 7 degrees lower today, though. Daegu should have a high that is 7 degrees lower than yesterday. Gwangju is going up to 24 degrees. Well, sunny skies return tomorrow, and warm and sunny conditions should continue into the end of the work week. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that wraps up our newscast for this hour, but we'll be back tomorrow for our Tuesday's edition of New Day at Arirang.
Thanks very much for tuning in, and do stick around for more updates throughout the day. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Goodbye.